Hey, what's up guys? Today I'm finally reviewing the Maxpedition Excelsa. I'm reviewing, it's going to be a double feature. I'm going to review the large and the small, which is in this box. I kept it in the box to show you how you get the knife. The majority of my use and experience with these knives has been with the large. Although the small is identical, it's just smaller size. But it mimics the knife in every way, you know, features, the design, the shape, everything else. Blade steel, composition, the whole thing. So the majority of my use has been on this large model. And right off the bat, if you don't really have time for the full review and all the details, I can tell you this is a fantastic knife. A really amazingly made knife. These knives are made in Taiwan, and if I didn't know that, I wouldn't think it. I would think this is an American-made, solid, beautiful knife. There's knives made all around the world, and where it comes from doesn't necessarily distinguish the quality at all. I've had some cheap American knives that are just junk, and I've had some, of course, many more junky knives from China and Taiwan and India. I've had knives from all around the world that have been crappy, but I've also had knives all around the world that have been really good. And as we all know in the knife community, the quality control from these knives that are being made overseas has been phenomenal. And they've really stepped up the game. I know a lot of companies unfortunately do go overseas, and I'm always sad to see that. It's business, it's cheaper to make things elsewhere. But as long as the product, you know, the quality standards are still as high as they are here in the States, I'm okay with that. If it's cheaper for them and ultimately it's cheaper for me, the consumer, then it is what it is. I'd prefer to keep production in the United States for, you know, American companies, but I'm not going to get on a soapbox about that. I can tell you the quality on this knife is amazing. And like I said, I am surprised to see that it's made in Taiwan, which is stated right there on the box. So here's the large. Like I said, this one happens to fit my hand beautifully. Just melts in the hand. Ergonomics on these knives are fantastic. Even the small one has pretty good ergos, but given the choice, since I had the big one as well, I definitely gravitated towards this one. It just fits my hand perfectly. Slight finger choil. You also have a slight curvature in the bottom of the handle, as well as a slight curve on the back, so it fits the palm very nicely. My thumb lands exactly where it's supposed to in this very slight thumb ramp. Round jimping doesn't really do much. I've talked this before. If you're really into jimping, this isn't the jimping for you. Maybe a drawback for some people, but for me, it makes no difference whatsoever. It is a slight ramp though, so the thumb kind of locks in place there. Very nice. These are titanium handled frame locks and with D2 blades. They're amazing cutters. They're solid, no blade play in any direction. They're well built, really interesting design. And we're gonna talk about it more in this video. First I'm going to do is I'm going to take the small one out of the box to show you how you get this and talk about that a little bit. So here's how you're going to get the knife. Maxpedition came out with a new box, which is really cool. We have the kind of blueprint of the knife in the background throughout. And it's a black background with like a cool mint green coloration. Sometimes color doesn't come through true on videos, but I can tell you it's like a mint green color. Very cool if you're into collecting these knives and you're into, you know, if you're getting this as a gift. Christmas is around the corner, so if you're no knife person and you are buying this for a gift, it's a cool little presentation. It's not just a simple plain box, so that's nice. And of course, like most knives, you're going to have all your information right on the end. That's simply for, if nothing else, storage. But if you do store a bunch of knives in your safe or something like that, or a closet, it's easy to distinguish what's what, so that's always nice. But you know me, really don't care about packaging, so let's move on. The outer portion is a sleeve, okay? So we slide that off, and we have our paperwork. Maxpedition care and feeding of Maxpedition Excelsa folding knives. So you open this up, and we have all the information we need for maintenance. Our blade is a D2 steel, so we're going to be able to, or have to maintain that. What's very nice is they show both the small and the large, and all of your specs. All right, so everything you need to know about your knives are going to be right there for you, particularly if you bought one and you're interested in how they compare with the other one. It's a nice little layout as far as paperwork is concerned. Everything you need to know is right there. A lot of times your paperwork is basically just your maintenance and, you know, your warranty or limited warranty. So it's nice to see they have the full specs on there. Very much on par with a lot of flashlights, and that's no surprise because when you get your flashlights, a lot of them are being made overseas. All these different countries outside the US, you know, all your awesome flashlights you're seeing from like 4.7s and God, there's an Olight, there's a million companies out there, and they're all being made overseas, and I'm seeing similar type paperwork. And because I don't usually take note of this kind of stuff, to be honest. I mean, I'll look at the paperwork for 2 seconds, but I don't really examine it. And I found that the paperwork you get with these flashlights these days are not only extremely comprehensive, but very informative. I actually find myself keeping these because it gives me all the specs and the information, the light output and everything. But I'm seeing the same with this, and like I said, it's no surprise this being made in Taiwan. So that's pretty cool. And this is in one case where I guess America could take notes from these other countries and these other companies outside of the US, because I don't usually see this kind of stuff in American made products. So as much as I love America, we certainly can learn a thing or two, right? I try to keep unbiased opinion on as far as products go anyway. So anyway, there's our paperwork. So here's a knife. You have a nice hard foam, just like a Benchmade. It's gonna come in, well, at least some Benchmades. And then you have the knife nestled in there. So when we get the knife out, the first thing we're gonna find underneath is our own dedicated tool, which is nice. It's a double-sided Torx tool. And this is a nice little addition. This is something, companies don't have to do. It makes your life a lot easier, especially if you're someone who does not prepare and get your own set of tools. So we have here is our Torx driver, and we have 2 different sizes, 2 different heads. Okay, the larger head is for our pivot, and the smaller head is for our body screws, our thumb stud, as well as our pocket clip. Now the thumb stud is something I'm going to talk about a little bit more in the review. This is one downside, and I'm not going to really get into too much right now, but what I can tell you is you can remove this screw so you can swap it, because you notice our thumb stud is for one side. It's not ambidextrous, but they do give you the tool and they do give you the capability of swapping that if you want to carry this for left-handed use. All right, so it's standard, it's going to be right-handed because that's going to be more people are right-handed. All right, so really, I just want to show you the packaging, show you that you get the tool, which is very nice. It's always a nice addition. All right, guys, real quick, I want to use these new tools here. I'm going to be testing these, but right now I'm just using them real quick. I do have the specs. I want to see how close these are out of the box. This is a pair of digital calipers I got. These are very affordable. This is from Banggood. I'll talk about that in a future video. I've got a bunch of stuff from them. But the small one, our stock should be 0.11 inches. Now, of course, when you're measuring your blade stocks, you want to measure it at, the actual back part of the tang here, where it's not ground at all. That's going to be true to size. So it should be 0.11, which it is. It is 0.11. Okay, so that is correct. And the large should be 0.14 inches for the blade stock. So once again, right here on the spine. And that is right, 0.14. All right, so that's just a quick little measure. I want to make sure that was correct. Oh, actually, I want to make sure these are correct. The specs I have are directly from Maxpedition, so I would trust in their specifications. All right, also I just want to use a digital scale as well. And I'm going to give you the whole rundown of the specs overall. So if these tools do work and they function properly like they should, I will be using them in the future as well. All right, so we're at ounces. Now the small one should weigh 2.7 ounces. The digital scale showing 2.93. So let's see. The large one should come out to 5.1. And 5.26. So it seems like the scale has to be calibrated. It's a little bit over. But I just want to give it a quick little test here and use it. So anyway, here's the actual specs. That's me more or less playing around on camera with my new tools there to see how good they are. So here's the specs. The small Excelsa, they do mimic each other. All right, they're both titanium. They're both D2 blades. They're both drop point, full flat ground blades. Okay, great performance on these because of that full flat grind. But the specs on the small one is 2.9 inches on our blade. Open 6.7 inches and closed 3.9 inches. And once again, the weight is 2.7 ounces. All right, the large 3.6 inches on our blade. Again, same D2. Both of these are Rockwell between 58 and 60. They're both also cryo heat treated. All right. Open length on this large one's going to be 8.3 inches, closed 4.7 inches, and this is 5.1 ounces. So the first thing I could tell you is there is actually a significant difference between large and small. 5.1 ounces, 2.7 ounces, okay? As far as the blades, 3.6 inches versus 2.9 inches. So you got to ask yourself, is it really worth, you know, the extra weight for the extra cutting performance? For me, it's not just about, you know, the blade length and what I can do with it. It's more or less on the overall comfort. Now, although the small one's comfortable in my hand, I just prefer the large one. So I will deal with the extra weight for that extra 0.7 inches. All right, so that's just personal preference. But besides that, they both do mimic each other perfectly by design. Everything else functions exactly the same. As far as price difference, there's only a $20 difference. All right, that's the big thing to consider here is for $20 more, do you want the larger version? This is $120 and this is $140. All right, and this is if you're getting it direct. I'm sure there are dealers that could have you know, slightly cheaper prices out there, it just depends. But for $20 more, you're getting 0.7 inches, okay, of cutting surface, but you're also getting a heftier knife. For me, I prefer the large one just because of how it fits in my hand. So, just preference. All right, now I want to talk about the experience I've had with these knives, the pros, the cons, what I like about them, what I don't like about them. As I've mentioned before, the small one I have limited use on. I know that they do mimic each other, so I've used this one a lot more than the small one. So I'm going to talk about this one more specifically in this review. But I will tell you, as far as ergonomics, this is the only way they're going to be different. Obviously, it's smaller, so the ergos will be slightly different. I can still get a full 4-finger grip on this. Pointer finger in that first choil. Then, of course, in this portion here, I can still get all 3 fingers in pretty comfortably. It's just with the large version, I can get a much more relaxed 4-finger grip. I don't feel like it's scrunched up real tight or anything. So that's why I did gravitate towards the large one. But the ergos on the small one are still fantastic. So I'm going to leave that in the background while I talk about the big one. Now, everything I'm about to say does mimic over to the small one as far as designs and things I don't like about it. And the first thing I have to talk about, really the only major thing I don't like about this knife is right there, the thumb stud. I am not a fan of this thumb stud. I can tell you I've overcome the problems I've had with it by changing how I use this knife, but I didn't think it was necessary. It should just be like any other knife where the thumb stud's easily accessible. Okay, we have basically just a slant. Now, ideally, what I found out after, you know, a little bit of use with this, is that ideally you're going to put the pad of your finger, your thumb here, directly on the face of that thumb stud. Okay, because it's slanted, you basically have a front face of it now. It's not symmetrical. So if you put the pad of your finger on directly on there and have full contact, you have no problem using this. And this is how it was designed. You just push out slightly, and that knurling, which is very sharp, does grip the finger, and it's very comfortable. To use a knife like this, just put the side of your thumb right there and just push out. Boom. Every single time, very comfortably. But naturally, I don't normally do that. I don't normally flick the knife out sideways. And I've showed this in the past, when I have a thumb stud, I'll generally flick up and out. And by doing that on this particular design with this thumb stud, I was tearing up my thumb. We have a pretty good strong detent on this knife. All right, so it doesn't, once it's closed, it doesn't want to open up very easily. That's very beneficial in that when you build up pressure to open it, when it finally does open, it's very easy to do so. So you're talking about flicking this thing open very fast and securely and have a nice strong lockup with no wrist movement at all. There's no reason to ever move your wrist on this. You don't need to flick it out. You don't need any kind of assistance. It does all the work just by having that very strong detent. But again, the problem I had was I'm used to doing it like this. When I flick out like that, I'm catching the corner of this very sharp edge. Extremely, extremely uncomfortable. So when I first took it out of the box, I'm playing with it, I'm going, what the frig? And it's just cutting me up, and I'm like, I do not like this knife. But very soon realized to just change my method of opening to pushing sideways. By pushing directly sideways, it works every single time and opens up nice and securely for me. So thumb stud is a no-go, for me anyway. What I can say, obviously, you could modify it. You shouldn't have to modify a knife out of the box, but for me, if you're like me and you open knives like that, you kind of flick them up and out, you're gonna find the same thing that I found out, is that you have to either literally change the way you're opening the knife when you're using this particular knife, or you have to modify the thumb stud by sanding down or rounding those corners because it's just too rough on the finger. Now you will notice that there is a screw on the backhand side, so you can reverse the thumb stud. So it's not ambidextrous out of the box, but they do give you the option. It's not pinned in there, which is very nice. I do like that. For the few lefties out there, although I'm a righty, I do feel for you. And I realize it sucks that so many knives are specifically designed for right-hand use. But I know you guys are very smart and you overcome and adapt very easily. But as far as in this case, you can swap the thumb stud out. Now, I have played a little bit with the angle and tried to make the angle lower. That did help. I put it back for this review, but if you're like me and you want to open it upwards like that, you can actually rotate this so that the front face of that thumb stud is more on a downward angle. But I decided to put it back. I got used to opening like this. It's really not that big of a deal now. Initially, when you get this knife, you're gonna think it sucks because of that. That is my only issue with this knife. Everything else about this knife, I absolutely love. Full titanium handle scales are great. They're obviously very strong. They have a nice dull kind of bead blast looking finish on them. The D2 blade is a great slicer, great performer. We don't have a whole lot of belly on this drop point here, but it's definitely adequate. And with the full flat ground blade, it just chews through everything. So it's gonna perform a lot better. I see this in a lot of the production industry in the knife community right now. A lot of companies are doing full flat ground blades, and for good reason, because they perform well. So as far as performance, ergonomics, the looks, everything is fantastic about this knife. I absolutely love it. It's just the thumb stud killed it for me in the beginning. I very quickly got used to it because I wanted to use this knife so much. I enjoyed it so much that I did overcome that thumb stud. If the knife overall was just whatever, then that thumb stud would I would never take it out of the drawer ever again. I would get it, I'd probably sell it, trade it, wouldn't like it. But it's a good enough knife where I did very quickly overcome my issue with the thumb stud. Some minor details about this knife that I really like that kind of make it classy. Right off the bat, you can see, obviously they have presentation hardware. I've talked about this before. You're literally just swapping the hardware so that all of your screw heads are on the reverse side. Being that this is a right-handed presentation, this is how it looks. You have a nice clean look with the female portions of these screws, the back of them. It just looks very nice. It's very presentation worthy, let's put it. Also, a very minute detail which I really like is that the spine of this knife is rounded. Now, I talk to this all the time. I am a huge fan of rounded spines, not just for the way they look, but the way they feel. And what I've been doing lately, and this is a good little tip for you guys out there if you're opening a lot of boxes, when I'm opening a very fragile box, in other words, first of all, if I don't know what the contents are inside, or that I know the contents are either soft or some kind of paper or something, basically a situation where when I cut into a box, I don't want to cut deep into the box. What I will do is I will put my thumb and middle finger on the pivot like this and choke up. My other two fingers wrap around, and my pointer finger rests on the spine of the blade. Now by doing this, the tip of my finger acts like a guide. If I keep my finger like this, all right, the box, in other words, the tip of the knife will not go in the box further than my finger. So to give you a demonstration, if let's say I'm cutting into this box, which I'm not going to right now, but let's say I were to cut into that box, I would puncture through, and my finger would literally stop the blade. So if I have a 1/4 inch of that blade exposed, and I puncture through, as I make my cut across, if I keep my finger solid, it'll rub up against the box the entire time and will not allow that blade to penetrate more than a 1/4 inch. This will prevent cutting the contents of any kind of package you have. So it's a great little tip, and I find that using different knives now and using that tip, the rounded spines really make it more comfortable to do that. So just from personal experience, that's what I've found is that I do prefer a rounded spine 100% of the time. It's not like a game changer. It's not like if it doesn't have that, I don't like the knife. It's just always like a really nice surprise. It's a little bonus for me. We have a frame lock here, perfect lockup, no blade play on either knife. Like I said, this one is barely used. This one got all the use on this, but still no blade play in any direction. There's the lockup. Also, the centering on the blade. You can see that right there. Very nice, very close. I don't know if it's dead center, but it's darn close. We do have a free flow design through here. So we have 2 standoffs, and our back standoff is a little bit thicker because it also acts as the hold for our screw here, whereas this one is just internal with the frame. We do have a lanyard hole on the very bottom of the knife, which is nice. I didn't use this to put a lanyard through, but it's an oversized hole, so it's easy to put your 550 cord in there if you want. What I do like about this too, overall by design, is that the blade is sterile. There is no markings on the blade whatsoever. Doesn't tell you what steel it is, doesn't have a company logo. They put the company logo on the lock bar, which I've never seen before. I really like it. I like it, first of all, because it's different, and things that are different stand out to me. But I like it because it does leave a nice sterile blade. If you're to use your knife very heavily, you'll notice on your other blades that the logos may start wearing off a little bit. Having it here, I think even with your hand, wearing it and stuff, it's not gonna wear as much as the blade, in use. So it's an interesting thing to see them put it there. I don't know if they just did it to be different or if they did it for that specific reason so it wouldn't wear off as easily, but whatever the case may be, I like it. I think it's pretty cool. As far as the pocket clip, it is changeable, reversible. This is how you're gonna get it. You're gonna get them tipped down out of the box. I kept the small one like this because I felt the small one carried a little bit better like that. But more so, I swapped this one because I do like a tip-up knife. And I do find that with the heavier knife like this, it stays in the pocket much better. I do like retrieving it better in a tip-up position. So it's very easily swappable. You just have one screw. You can see there's a hole through there so you can get your driver in there very easily. And I didn't find that once I took off the pocket clip that this little cutout here, the milled portion, it didn't rub my finger or anything, so it didn't have a problem with that. What I can tell you is with the small one, having it tipped down, how you get it out of the box, the pocket clip does not interfere with anything. But when this one came out of the box, besides having the thumb stud all messed up and ripped my finger up, the pocket clip in a tip down position was uncomfortable to me. It definitely rubbed on the inside of my finger and created a hot spot. So something to note, if you do like tip down knives, you may not like this particular design because of that. So just something to consider. As far as the frame lock, there is a piece internally that acts as a lock bar stabilizer. Now we're all used to seeing a lock bar stabilizer being on the external portion of the scale. And basically what we'll see is a little round piece of metal that's kind of half sticking out, and that prevents the lock bar, in our frame lock, from overextending. So we don't push it out too far, because if you push it out too far and it actually bent or kinked in here in the metal, it would not lock up properly, right? We all know this. We think it's really cool to see the lock bar stabilizers. I've talked about this before. I agree. It's not hurting anything. It's pretty cool, and I suppose some people out there, although I've never done it personally, some people may over or hyperextend their lock bar and maybe have issues with lockup because of it. This knife does have a lock bar stabilizer, but for the first time I've ever seen it, it was done internally. You can really tell when someone uses their knives because they're filled with lint, right? Anyway, let's take a look in here. Right, I'm gonna try to keep this to the top left of your screen so you can see it. Hopefully you can see the light reflecting. I'll show you another angle. But there's a little piece in there that looks like a guitar pick. It's a triangular shaped piece, and there's two screws which actually mount it against our lock bar, okay? Let me show you this other angle here. Maybe able to see a little bit better. Angle this light for you. There we go. Hopefully you can see in there sticking up a little bit. I will take this knife apart to show you this better in a separate video. But basically, let me shut this off. Underneath the lock bar, which is mounted to the lock bar, is a little triangular piece. All right, and it sticks out past the lock bar so it hits the frame. So when you go to move the lock bar out, it doesn't allow it to move past this point right here because it's rubbing up against the frame. You can actually see it through the front. If I bring it up, let me do that again. You can see it right there through the cutout. All right. So there is a lock bar stabilizer in this. It's just internally placed, which is interesting. I have seen it before, but not on a production knife, at least not one I was aware of. So something new, which is really cool. It definitely doesn't take away from the look. Some people may not like the way a lock bar stabilizer looks. So I guess design-wise and for aesthetic purposes, they put it internally. So it does its job. It's a feature, it's a function, but no one knows about it. It's out of view. So overall, I really like this knife. It's smooth, it came sharp, it stayed sharp. It's a nice versatile EDC shape, that simple drop point, very light curves in here, easy to sharpen. I do prefer plain edge. I'm not sure offhand if they do offer this in a combo edge version, but I would stick with plain edge, to be honest, for most knives anyway. Overall, it's very ergonomic, it's comfortable. Even just this cutout here on both sides, it just really kind of allows your fingers to wrap around easily. There's no abrupt corners, there's no sharp spots anywhere. I don't have any hot spots. It's comfortable, it's functional, and it's strong. So that's pretty much it. I mean, to sum this knife up, it is an awesome knife. As far as the price range, I think the price is on par with what the market has to offer. I mean, you have a full titanium frame lock with a D2 blade, couple extra features like the rounded spine, like the fact that you have that internal lock bar stabilizer. Yeah, for 140 bucks, the large one, that's on par with the market right now. I love the design. It's worked very nicely for me. It's very strong, lockup's great. Cut's great. The performance is very good. You have a versatile blade, nice pointy tip, nice sharp edge, nice grind. Full flat ground blades are good performing blades. So overall, it's a big winner for me. I really like it. I do prefer the large one for my specific hand, but I can tell you, if you do like your smaller knives, don't shy away from the small one. All right. 2.7 ounces on this. It is different than 5.1 ounces, so you may end up going with the smaller one. You don't necessarily need, that larger blade. This is still a very good, functional, strong little pocket knife. So that's it, guys. That's my double review of the large and small Maxpedition Excelsa. Taiwanese made? That's very shocking to me. I would never have guessed it. Like I said, I had to literally read it on the box to believe it. These are awesome, awesome knives for the money, and great performing EDC blades. So thanks for watching, guys. Hope you have a great day, and I will see you soon. Take care.